All right, good evening, everyone. This is Monday, November 9th, 7:35 p.m. And this is a meeting of the Wilmette Park District Board of Park Commissioners. It's a regular meeting. Could we start off with the roll call of the attendance, please?
Sure. Commissioner Abbott.
Here.
Commissioner Murdoch.
Here.
Commissioner Schisler.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Wolf.
Here.
Commissioner Goebel.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
You have a full quorum.
All righty. Before we start, I'd like to mention to everybody that we've got a slight change to the agenda tonight. We are not going to be voting and when we get to Section 8, the committee reports, item B, the Parks and Rec Committee. The intent from the committee chairman, Commissioner Murdoch, was to have us sort of give our opinions as to what we thought of those two items and share them, but not vote on them tonight. So I just want to make sure everybody listening and on the board understands that, as well as staff. So that's the only change I'm aware of at this point.
Thanks, Gordon. I appreciate that.
All righty, we've got lots of minutes to approve. The first one is the May 27th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting. That was one on the Shoreline Protection Project. Could I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve that, please.
And a second?
I'll second. Sal second.
Thank you. Any comments, edits, corrections? Hearing none? A vote, please.
Commissioner Abbott.
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch.
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf.
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel. Commissioner Goebel. Unmute. Okay. And Commissioner Anderson.
Yes, but
Okay.
I didn't hear Commissioner Goebel.
She
Yeah.
I got her.
Okay.
All right. Motion is approved. Minutes are approved.
Thank you. The next one is the July 13th, 2020 regular meeting. Any comments, questions, edits, changes? Hearing none? Could, Oh.
No, I thought I had something on that, but never mind. Nope. I'm wrong.
okay,
I thought-
no problem, no problem. Could we have a?
Actually, I'm sorry. I did have a question, and it was really, I meant to ask you about that, Gordon. I think in those minutes, you are attributed a comment that says that we're expected to lose 10 million in revenue this year. Is that what, in fact, you had said?
Yeah, we were losing 10 million in revenue. It doesn't mean we're losing 10 million of gross profit.
Right. No, absolutely. But I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that that's what you had said. Right.
Yeah. We went from, I think, 21 million to, at the time, 11 million of revenue, since changed with what's happened since then. But that at the time, that was what I said.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, I think I know what the question, except I'm not sure where it was in there. It was sort of, it had to do with season passes for the beach. And as to whether they were, I'm trying to just find it. And I don't, I don't see it now, so I'll draw my question. So. Okay, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I did have, and I'm sorry, I did have one other very minor correction on page 4. It looks like the 4th paragraph, the 3rd line, talking about the fence. He wants to make sure the fencing is perceived properly and stress that people are still welcome to walk the beach. It just says to walk the beach and enjoy the rest of the park.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Oh, and actually, I just found on page 5, on the top paragraph, a recent report shows the number of passes sold is no longer twice the number as last year, and the gap is closing. Is that correct? I mean, I thought perhaps it could possibly be correct, but I thought, I just kind of thought we sold a lot more season passes than we had in the past. So I was wondering if that,
That statement is correct. Initially, it was
Okay.
double, but the gap did close. It was no longer double.
closed,
In fact, we did sell more passes this year than last year.
but it wasn't double.
It was not double at that time, correct?
Okay, good. All right.
And I have an item on page 8 of 9. And first paragraph discussing the staffing model of the paddle program. And the next line is expressed discomfort in discussing personnel issues. That's not it. It's actually whether or not it's appropriate for the board to discuss individual personnel, whereas that's an administration decision. So I had noted it was not appropriate in a public meeting to discuss someone's performance.
So would you recommend removing that sentence altogether or modifying it?
I think it needs to be modified. I actually discuss personnel issues every day as a manager of people.
Sure.
So it's a little more accurate to say it's specific to this issue and that
Sure.
that's an administration decision.
Or maybe individual personnel.
Okay.
Individual personnel.
We can update that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, can we get a vote on the amended minutes?
I don't believe I heard a motion or a second yet.
We're still on July 13th, right?
Correct. There was no motion or a second.
Oh, really?
I'll move to approve the minutes of July 13th, 2020.
As
Second.
amended.
As amended. Second?
And I'll second.
Great. And a roll call vote. Commissioner Abbott?
Yes,
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Minutes are approved as amended.
Okay, well, the next item on the agenda is the August 21st, 2020 special board meeting minutes. And that was doing with the shoreline protection and Smith Group presenting our options to us. Could we get any motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners from Friday, August 21st, 2020.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions, comments, edits, changes? Hearing none?
I don't think I had none.
Can we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
yes,
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay, next one is October 8th, 2020, Committee of the Whole meeting. That's where we're weighing in on the recommendations. Could I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the
move to-
motion.
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments, edits, changes?
I'm sorry, which one is this?
October 8th, 2020, Committee of the Whole meeting. It's where we were weighing on the recommendations that we've gotten.
We were down in
Okay,
Gilson.
sorry, yes, I have nothing.
Okay. No further changes or no further comments? All right, let's have a roll call vote or a vote.
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes,
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay, the next is the October 15th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting. That was our walking tour down at the, at Gilson Park. Could I get,
I will move
Motion.
to approve this.
okay, we got a motion to approve, a second?
Second.
Thank you.
These are not actually, there's not a lot of verbatim. The master plan, Lakota and Woodhouse Tanucci has prepared their notes from this walk around, which at least the Lakefront meeting has seen a draft version of this, and those comments will be released to the public and to the rest of the board for comment in future meetings. So this is just sort of perfunctory meeting minutes, but not all the various things were brought up.
There'll be more coming later.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, edits? Hearing none, could we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch,
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Okay, and next is the October 15th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Could we get a motion to approve and a second, please?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the October 15th, 2020 regular board meeting.
Could I get a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any questions, comments, edits, changes?
I think I had a comment. I'm just trying to go through. Can't find it either. No, here either. All right, well, no, I'm wrong. I thought I had a no, I'm wrong. Okay, I'm wrong. I didn't have any, no comments for me.
Okay. All right, could we get a vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott, Commissioner
muted.
Abbott,
Unmute. Yes, sorry.
couldn't find you on my screen. Commissioner Murdoch,
I am going to abstain. They weren't in the original packet and I did not review them when they came back out. So I'm going to abstain.
okay. Commissioner Schisler,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Great. Okay, moving to new business. We've got consideration of the Hibbard Park stormwater design plans. Steve or Mike, do you want to handle that, or?
I'll lead it in. So per the terms of the intergovernmental agreement regarding stormwater, the park board specifically put in the language to review and approve plans as developed for each one of the parks. And over the last couple of months, we've had the engineers from Christopher Burke Engineering, as well as from the Village of Wilmette present to make presentations regarding Hibbard Park. And those plans had been distributed via a link provided by Christopher Burke Engineering, as well as a summary plan that is in your packets that you received on Friday, as well as an amendment to the easement that had to be made in response to requests from ComEd. So you have the documents to be approved, so per the IGA language. We have engineers from Christopher Burke, as well as the Village of Wilmette, with us in the event that anyone has a question, but they do not have a presentation.
Anybody got any questions?
Can I ask one? Is this pretty much the same plans that we've seen at the last meeting? Nothing has changed significantly that we need to, I mean, I did review them, but sometimes it's hard to pick out the nuances of a drain or something moving a few feet. So I just want to confirm that these are very similar to what we saw before.
You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
And the other question with respect to the easement, was there any sort of a material change there? Same sort of question with ComEd.
No, the only change with the easement was that on the far west side near Hill Street, we worked with ComEd and they requested a public utility easement along the western side of the playground. That allows for the electrical feed from the transformer that they'll place to go to the pump station at the Hill Street dead end.
And not to be too technical, but do we know how far that easement is from the playground equipment? Does that in any way impact our ability to lay out that playground the next time we come in with new equipment?
No, it will not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have none, if anybody's waiting for me.
Yep.
As Commissioner Wolf said, these look pretty substantially the same, and I do want to commend the engineers who are looking for solutions that seem to satisfy both our concerns as well as their needs.
Anything else, Brian? I count on you to be looking at those drawings. So.
Yeah, I know. I don't really have anything. I think they look fine.
Okay. So Steve, what do we have to do at
Sure.
this meeting?
So what we're looking for is a motion to approve the Hibbard Park stormwater design plans and updated easement documents as presented.
So moved.
Second. I'll second.
Okay. All right. Could we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch,
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Next.
Darren and Bridget. You can leave now or stay, your choice. Have a good evening.
Thank you
I'm
all
sure
very
they're
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
hanging on to every word here.
Mhm.
All right, next item on the agenda is the consideration of the anti-racism statement. Steve, do you want to handle that, or should we let Commissioner Goebel?
I'll set it up and then Julia can knock it down. As you'll recall, a handful of months ago, the League of Women Voters read a statement during public comment in a meeting asking us to consider putting out a statement in line with what the Village of Wilmette, the school districts, the library has done. I've worked with Commissioner Goebel behind the scenes as well as our team here at the Park District, and we've developed the statement that is in your packet. And from there, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Goebel.
That's a great setup. Thank you so much. I think it's appropriate to just clarify why we feel it's important to make a statement. It does seem self-evident. A lot of these the words that have been selected both by the communications staff of the Park District and with input from me, from Steve, and certainly in we're being mindful of the other statements that have been made by the village. We want to be unified as local government bodies that we do not stand for racism. In fact, we are anti-racism, and we want to encourage our youth and any participants in our programming to be to feel welcomed to be here, and that this is a safe place. And so with that, I'll read the statement, which is: the Wilmette Park District stands against racism, hate, discrimination, prejudice, and intolerance. We are committed to providing a safe, equitable, and inclusive environment where all are welcome and treated with dignity and respect. We believe that providing this opportunity for all is core to our mission. And now I believe it's appropriate to move to approve the statement. So I will so move.
So move.
Second.
Second, sure.
Any questions, comments?
Yes, I have just a brief comment, I guess, more so than a question. And Julia, I thought that was a great introduction, and I think I'm sure you'll find unanimous support. I guess I would just say that I hope that this statement is a beginning, not an end. And I think what's more critical than a statement is to have a culture of inclusion. And while I do not doubt that we do in fact have a culture of inclusion, I would hope that the staff would continue to look at ways that we can be more inviting and more inclusive. And I suspect one of the starting points with that would be to take a look at some of our demographics in terms of participants, in terms of staff members, and perhaps the staff could pull some information together for us to continue, keep this on the agenda, keep this in the public sphere. And as I said, I hope this is the start and not the end on this topic.
And that's exactly right, Commissioner Murdoch. You know, this is a statement and it is also a beginning. So with leadership from Lindsay Thomas on staff, there is a team of people looking at 17 different policies and procedures that are part of the IAPD program around excellence in park districts. And they are evaluating these in chunks. And so what we'll do in the Financial Planning and Policy Committee is review chunks of these policies, beginning with legal, beginning with sections that make sense to review together. And then over the course of several months, we'll recommend changes. So we're going to kind of chunk it out because as you can imagine, some of these policies are rich with detail. Others are yet to be created. So they are recommended. And at the time of the founding of the park district might not have been considered a normal part of compliance. This is a very compliant organization. And so we're making moves to ensure that where there are recommended policies to reach that level of excellence supported by the Illinois Association of Park Districts, if some are missing, they will be added. If some are brief, they will be expanded. And so I think from here, I understand that there's an intention to evaluate how our staffing and hiring practices match our statement. And that part of that involves attracting a diverse base of applicants. And it goes beyond saying, you know, we are EEOC compliant. It goes to how do we ensure that we are seen as a desirable workplace for people of all faiths, races, backgrounds, and so forth. So I'm thrilled to say this is a beginning.
That sounds fantastic. I'm very excited to hear that. Thank you.
President,
Okay.
and I see Commissioner Wolf's hand up and then Commissioner Abbott's hand.
I just had a question. I'm assuming that this will be obviously on our website and in our leisure guide that we send out, but will it be anywhere else located within our facilities, or how will we get this statement of inclusion out?
For sure. We're definitely going to share it on our website through our social media platforms. Marketing is looking at all the options as far as signage in our buildings as well. So we're not going to just pass this here today and then it just sits in a corner of a website somewhere. It's going to be, you know, I know we're talking about it as a beginning. I look at it as a continuation of what we've done ever since I've had the pleasure of working in the Wilmette community and for this.
That's fair.
So, you know, we will continue to walk that talk and continue to make sure that our programs, facilities, our workforce, everything is as open and inviting as it possibly can be.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Abbott, I think I saw your hand next.
Yes. I think the statement totally makes sense, and I do believe it represents the collective beliefs of this board and this park district, and I certainly applaud Commissioner Goebbels putting this together and working with staff to get this together, and it'll obviously pass. I don't want to take anything away from the statement, so I don't want to like launch into a speech here right now. But one of the issues that near and dear to my heart and causes me some heartburn at times is the issue of non-residents versus residents in the park. This past summer, I've certainly talked on this a great deal over the years. This past summer, I put together my own personal statement. I don't expect this to be a board statement. I would like to, at some point, come to this issue and make my own personal statement. There's a lot of misconceptions about what residents, I'm sorry for the gongs, what residents, non-residents, what they're owed, what privileges residents do have. I would like to go ahead and let's complete this statement. As we say, this is a work in progress. And I would like to come to the issue of residents, non-residents. And at that time, I'd like to make my own statement as well. So proceed with this resolution.
I kind of, well, kind of a statement or say that I feel like what we are calling it anti-racism statement, but I think part of it thinks it goes beyond that because this applies to it applies to everyone. I mean, we are not only, non-racist, but we don't discriminate on basis of sex, on the basis of sexual orientation. So I don't know. I guess titling it, I just, yes, it's but it goes beyond anti-racism. It just goes beyond how we approach other people. So
is it really an anti-discrimination statement?
That's a better phrase. Thank you, Todd. I think it's a better phrase.
And I don't think we need to get too hung up on it because it'll just be the statement. It won't be saying it's an anti-racism statement. It's just
yes,
a statement. Yeah.
Agreed.
Great.
So with that, though, Commissioner Clark, is there anything that we should add to it in your opinion?
I thought it was a very good statement. I mean, it was a
did
little
too.
bit different than the first one circulated.
Did you, Commissioner Clark, are you suggesting a change to the title of this, or is it? I agree with you. This is an inclusion statement, but I don't get hung up on the title. I love what it says. Are you suggesting a change in the title?
We will title it something different for the website and social media.
Okay. It is an inclusion statement.
Yep.
Yep.
And I do think it's worth looking post this statement, but looking at how we indicate that all are welcome at our parks, residents and non-residents alike, which I believe is what Commissioner Abbott is teeing up for us to discuss.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Should we get a vote?
Sure. Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch,
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
The statement is approved.
All right. Do I have to read all of the next one, Steve? I
You
do.
don't have to introduce the topic, no, but when we
Okay.
make the motion, yes.
Okay, well, I won't be making the motion. Okay, so we've got consideration of ordinance 2020-0-3. An ordinance authorizing, providing for an installment purchase agreement for the purpose of paying the cost of purchasing real or personal property in the park district, et cetera, $870,000 of debt certificates, all related to the cart path.
Correct. So what a parameter ordinance does for us is it sets kind of the outside parameters and then designates individuals within the organization to be able to execute within those parameters. Those individuals within this document are myself, President Anderson, and Vice President Goebel, President of the board, as well as the chair of the Financial Planning and Policy Committee. The terms within this parameters ordinance are broader than the terms that have been indicated to us by financial institutions, and the specifics will be worked out within the next week. It seems to be about the timing for the banks that are involved.
I think Mr. Murdoch had some questions or potential changes.
Sorry, I apologize. My wife is isolating right now and I was trying to help her with something. So I don't have all of the documents in front of me, and I'll come back if other people have questions as well. But as Steve and I had discussed offline briefly, it appears that there are a number of places in the documents where we reference general obligations of the park district, and I don't believe that to be the case. And I noted at least 3 places that I discussed with Steve, but I think there was at least one other. So I guess one of my questions is, if we approve something and there's an error, and I would consider that to be, a substantive issue, how do we ensure that it gets corrected?
Correct.
Or should we defer and get another draft of the document. These are important documents and they need to be exactly correct.
Correct. So I think instead of trying to go through this document and making sure that we change every place where the bond council left in general obligations to operational debt of the district, because that's the intent. This is not tax supported debt. This is debt that is to be repaid out of operational revenues and net income. So I don't think we want to try and go through and make sure we perfect the document tonight. So I would suggest deferring the document, but that will require most likely a very brief special board meeting at some point in the next week where we get enough of a quorum to come together and approve this document, because the timing of this is somewhat imperative.
Okay.
So I think table the issue.
Okay.
Could we vote on it at the committee of the whole meeting on Wednesday to help keep things moving forward, or?
Unfortunately, no, committee of the whole meetings that are just committee meetings. You don't vote in committee of the whole meetings.
Well, can we have a special meeting on Wednesday to vote on this and then go into a committee of whole meeting?
We need to notify the public 48 hours in advance before a meeting. So
So maybe after.
We
Kind
could
of.
do it at the end of the committee of the whole meeting. Yeah.
maybe we do it on Thursday afternoon or something. We'll have to look
We
at
don't have-
calendars
we
and
don't
look
have
at
enough
what we can
meetings.
do and still comply with all the Open Meetings Act.
Okay. Well, yeah. Not like we don't have enough meetings already.
Exactly. This one will be short, I promise you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of a delegate and alternate to the IAPD annual business meeting, which will be virtual this year.
Correct. As we do every year, I request that I be appointed as the delegate, and then you guys can arm wrestle for who's my backup. But the backup will not have to serve, as I will be able to attend the meeting.
In that case, I'll do it.
I'll nominate Commissioner Murdoch
All right.
as the
Second.
backup.
All right. So the motion is move to appoint Director Wilson as delegate and Commissioner Murdoch as alternate to represent the Wilmette Park District at the IAPD annual business meeting to be held January 30th, 2021.
Yeah. You guys are great.
I make that motion. Commissioner Abbott seconded it. So
All right. Roll call vote, President Anderson.
Please go. Yep.
All right. Commissioner Murdoch, or Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch,
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler,
yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf,
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the communications and correspondence. We've got an email from Jean Folman on the changes to community playfields in the packet. She's opposition to the proposed changes due to both financial concerns as well as the impact on the neighbors. Anybody else get any correspondence that didn't make it in the packet?
We received, I believe, 3 today that will be added to the packet online or added to next month's or moved to Parks and Rec, but they were addressed to the full board. So from people, I believe, who are in this meeting and have spoken at prior meetings in opposition to the amenities being discussed at community playfields.
Okay, all right. Okay, well then moving right along, then we're in the public comment section of the meeting and the recognition of visitors. Just a reminder that Executive Director Wilson will be timing people. It's 3 minutes, and he'll give you a sort of reminder to wrap it up at that point in time. Again, there's no discussions necessarily going on. This is just us listening to and taking in what the public has to say, and look forward to hearing what everybody's got to share with us.
All right.
Do your Hollywood squares here.
We will go left to right and down the rows, starting with Larry Schenker.
Hi, my name's Larry Schenker. I live at 2615 Marion Lane. My home backs up to the community playfield. I just want to let everybody know I really applaud all the work you've been doing on the community playfield project. I am in support of a permeable path around the park. I think it would be a great amenity for the joggers and runners. The other thing I'd like to add is I did notice looking at the proposed plan that there are several sections where the path, you won't be able to create a permeable path. It's my opinion that I think you're better off just leaving grass there rather than building a wooden boardwalk. It'll be far more reasonable in cost. And I think runners can easily adapt to that slight change, in their running. I know that bathrooms are also on the table. Is it something you're discussing? I guess I'd encourage their location to be as close as possible to the Wilmette Junior High. I think that's where most of the activity in the park is. I saw the other locations again in the proposed plan. I don't think a bathroom in the center of the park will be very attractive as a centerpiece of a beautiful park. And I'm very sympathetic to the neighbors on Pomona who aren't anxious to see a bathroom out their backyards. So again, I'm hoping if you do go forward with the bathrooms, they'll be located as close to or within the junior high. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And one thing I forgot to mention at the start of public comment, if you're just here to observe or you don't have anything you want to say, you're just interested, just unmute yourself and say you're here to listen and we'll move on to the next person. Don't feel obligated to speak. Anyone want to respond to Mr. Schenker in any way before I move on? I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in front of the board there. Great.
I guess I would just, hold on video, I'm sorry. We did talk about the possibility of having a path that did not include any boardwalk, and we've asked the staff to come back with some recommendations that would have a path without boardwalk. So I understand his comment, and we're looking for ways to accommodate that.
Great, thank you. Next on the screen, I see Kay Gordon.
There she go.
Can you unmute yourself, Ms. Gordon?
She go.
There she is. You're unmuted now.
Okay.
Mhm. We can hear you now, Ms. Gordon.
Okay. I would like to say that I walk through the community play field every day, and I play on the tennis courts. And I am very concerned about the lighting. I am against the lighting, I am against the path, and I'm concerned about the bathrooms. The bathrooms would be between two schools, and who was gonna supervise, because it's my understanding that there are children that are in the park at night, and how are they gonna be supervised? And how is it gonna be safe? And I also would like to see the park the way it is, with no path and no lights.
Great, thank you. Next on the screen, I see Walter Keats.
All right, I will be silent today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keats. Next on the screen, I see John Hager.
No comment this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hager. Next on the screen, I see Carol Rogulski.
Yes, I agree with Kay Gordon about being in opposition to permanent bathrooms in the playfield. I've said this before, but I really think that it might be a problem in the future. And later we'll look back at this and think, like, what were we thinking in case some child is hurt? So I agree with her on that. I am not keen on a fitness path, but if there is to be one, it certainly should be impermeable, nothing concrete. I was walking a couple days ago near the Skokie Lagoons, and I paid attention to the stone paths that were there. And somebody mentioned last week they thought it might be a good idea to have it be as wide as 10 feet so that runners could pass in both directions. I think that's excessive. As I was walking on the path near the Skokie Lagoons, just a little bit north of Willow, I paid attention, and I don't believe it was any more than 5 feet. I was with a dog. I was passed in both directions by walkers, runners, not bikers, because they were on the concrete path a little bit further ahead. But I think 5 feet would be a good width, maybe 5.5, something like that, but certainly not anything larger than that. And then no lights for the fitness path. I think any lights sticking up over there would be a trip hazard. And also, since I live on Marion Lane and I back to the community playfield, I personally would not want to have lights at nighttime, twinkling that close to my home. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogalski. Next on the screen, I see Barbara Kier.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I agree with Kay and with Carol. I do use the park almost every day, and I have walked through it without a path. Some kind of certainly, I mean, a path that is not concrete would certainly be better than anything that is permanent in that way and will allow water to go through. I'm concerned about the lights as well, and I'm also concerned about the permanent toilets. I think that the proposal to wait a while and study it a little more might come up with a better solution than what there is now, and definitely not in the middle of the park. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the screen, I see Andrew Levy.
I'm just here to listen tonight, Steve. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on the screen, I see Neil's iPad.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. Okay, my name is Neil Ferrari. I've been to these meetings before. I live at 2546 Laurel Lane, 41-year resident of Wilmette. First comment has to do with the bathrooms. Despite objections to having any bathrooms, if momentum continues by the board and you want to have a bathroom, it seems to me, based on the map and presentation that was made at the Park and Recs Committee meeting, certainly appears that while C, location C in the middle of the park, is in the middle of the park, B is in the middle where all the people are. So I want you to make sure you keep that in mind. It's closer to the tennis courts and then certainly the ball fields and the soccer fields. Second, with respect to the path, if there's a path, I'm not saying I support a path, but if there's a path, it certainly should not be an impervious surface. Should be no concrete, asphalt, or boardwalk. I mean, the whole purpose of the village's stormwater project was to address all the paving in Wilmette and improve drainage. It would seem to me counterproductive to put in an impervious surface path anywhere in the park. I do not support lights. I would suggest that maybe you think about a two-stage process for lights, is that if you do a path, put the path in, monitor its usage, and then see if there's a necessity for lights. And lastly, I know you haven't done a whole lot of thinking about it. It hasn't been on many of the committee meetings, but lighting down the center of the park, low-level lighting that would be focused towards the path, might be something that be an improvement for everyone who wants to use that. Bikers, walkers, strollers, runners, children leaving school in the dark in the wintertime. So it would seem to me that might be an improvement well worth the money. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrari. Next on the screen, I see Alan Golden.
Alan Golden, 2516 Laurel Lane. I also back up to the park. Thank you again for allowing us to speak. I also would like to thank Commissioner Murdoch for Way he handled the last recreational committee meeting, I thought that was really nicely done. I also object to the path, the lighting, the bathroom, the whole shtick. But my comment tonight has to do with the fact that you as a board are being asked to consider, and I understand you're not going to vote tonight, so that was good. Thank you for bringing that up earlier. You're asked to consider something that is half-baked. There's no plan. You don't know where the bathrooms are going to go. You don't know how big the bathrooms are going to be. You don't know how many stalls are going to be. So therefore, you have no clue how much it's going to cost. You don't know where the path is going to go. You don't know if there's going to be boardwalk or not. You don't know what surface it's going to be. You don't know how big it's going to be, how wide it's going to be. There's no plan. So my suggestion is, please, before you consider anything that needs to go into community playfield or any other park, not just community playfield, because I'm a heavy user of Gilson Park. I've been sailing there for 38 years. Anytime you put something into a park, there needs to be a comprehensive plan. I mean, you want landscaping, which a lot of us think would be great, to add some extra landscaping to the park, some more trees, some more bushes, make it more beautiful. But how do you know what to do? Where are you going to put a bathroom if you don't know where you're going to put landscaping? So you really need a comprehensive plan so you understand your costs, you understand what it's going to take. Let the village, let the people of the village look at that plan and decide if it's something that they really want, something they really want to spend money on, before you make any decisions about what happens in not only community playfield, but in any park in the village. It's almost like this is like fire ready aim, right? You really need to kind of get the cart before the horse here. It's, you know, not quite a planning situation. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Next on the screen, I see Kara Kozlowskis.
I'm just observing tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Next on the screen, I see Faye Jacobs.
Hi, everyone. I've spoken before. I appreciate your time. I lived on Pomona Lane, 2407 Pomona Lane for the last 31 years. I've raised 3 children. They've played soccer, baseball, t-ball throughout the years, using a porta potty during those sports seasons, no matter the location of the games, was never an issue. Today, when I walk the playfield pathway and see the cottonwood trees standing there, I really feel a sense of gratitude that you guys and gals as a collective board listened to those who wanted to save the trees, came up with an alternate plan, and together, especially with the neighbors who live on Pomona Lane, we all reached a compromise, and we really appreciate that. I come before you tonight to respectfully request, again, in the spirit of compromise, that you consider just using porta potties at the Highcrest end during the seasonal games and locate your permanent bathroom structure, if in fact you believe the structure really is necessary, by the baseball diamond and playground on the other end of the park, where the value of anyone's homes would not be directly impaired. I'm asking you not to locate a permanent bathroom structure outside my home and that of my dear Pomona Lane neighbors. And that seems reasonable. Location B at the opposite end of the field seems to be more advantageous as far more activity occurs there, and viewing a bathroom from the window of a homeowner would not take place. Also, as an avid walker, I'd also note that just this morning I stepped inside a porta potty by the tennis court, and they were clean and they were more than adequate for my purposes. When I walk through downtown Wilmette, the porta potties placed there by the village are state-of-the-art, with options to use a sink for sanitation reasons, an upgrade from those used by my kids years ago. I'd also like to ask you to close your eyes for a moment and imagine the construction of a permanent bathroom in your backyard. How do you feel about that, knowing that a different location is possible and far more suitable? Thank you for considering my request to place your permanent bathroom, again, if you feel it's necessary, versus keeping the more than adequate porta potties at a far less substantial cost by the tennis court and baseball fields. Location B gets my vote, and I hope it gets yours. Thanks again, and a huge shout out again to Mr. Walter Keats. He's been spelling things out for a whole bunch of neighbors and community people, and I just can't thank him enough. Thank you, Mr. Keats. That's it. Thank you. And to thank you again to all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Next on the screen, I see Derek Castile.
Good evening. My name's Derek Castile. I live at 2447 Pomona Lane, which is at the end of the street backing up to the park. I have 3 children here, 7, 4, and 1.5 years old. We bought the house really primarily because it backed up onto such a beautiful park. So thank you for being such a great steward of this important resource. In terms of the restroom plan and the path, I'm generally not supportive of either. However, if there's sufficient momentum to move forward and it's viewed as that it would be in the best interest of our community to do those things, I would urge you, similar to others who have already spoken, to either consider option A or option B in terms of the location. That would be by the tennis courts, the playground, the baseball diamonds, and the junior high. Really 2 reasons for my desire to have it sited over there. It maximizes the distance that the restroom would be from the surrounding homes. And secondly, I believe that if you were to wait the time that visitors actually spend in the park year round, you'd find that you were placing it in the area of the park that gets the most traffic. In terms of a walking path, similar to others who've spoken before me, I would urge you to consider a permeable surface. The idea of low lights down the middle of the park, the existing pathway, certainly makes a lot of sense to me. No opposition there. I think when the conversation started about lights and y'all showed some pictures of competing designs, I felt a bit panicked when I saw the pole lights, thinking that my house might be backing up to a Walmart parking lot in terms of having lights down both sides of it. So if they were the low lighting along the side of the path, tastefully done, I think I could definitely be on board with that. Finally, I just ask all of you to put yourselves in our shoes, those of us who are speaking and live on the park. If you put a bathroom 50, 70 feet outside of our property border, it's going to have an impact on the price of our home if we try to sell it. There's just no debating that. So please just consider us in terms of the placement, maximize the distance, put it where the people actually use it. And if you do lights, please keep them the low level lights as opposed to pole lights with dimmers and that go off at a reasonable hour. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Castile. Next on the screen, I see Charlie Hargrave.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for a quick moment. I've spoken before with some of you all and am opposed to bathrooms, paths, and lights. Just a moment ago, I ducked off to take a look out my back window. Sorry, I live at 2540 Laurel Lane on the south end of Community Playfield. And as I look out this evening, the Klieg lights that are on the junior high illuminating their parking lot essentially illuminate the whole western end of the park, probably up to where you're putting in a pumping station. And so perhaps very low level lighting on that central path might help alleviate sun glare as anybody might be riding their bicycle at night heading west. But there's no need for a path and certainly no lights if you do put a circumferential path in. Then the source of lights, rather than being way off to my left to look over at the junior high, the source of light could conceivably be right in front of my back door. So against, and hoping that we can improve this park simply by doing minimum. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrave. Next on the screen, I see Mark Schumacher.
Hi, good evening, everyone. No comments here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schumacher. Next on the screen, I see the letter K.
Yes, Steve, this Kent News Cable 2530 Laurel. No real comments. Thanks to Walter. And I support where the Wilmette Park Friends are as far as the information that they put out and the documents that we submitted. So thank you.
Thank you. Next on the screen, I see R. Prohov.
Rick Prohov, 2435 Pomona Lane. And again, I don't have a lot to add other than in the consideration of the matters that have been proposed. You know, we appreciate that this is a matter of compromise. You guys compromised on the trees. And once again, we're just asking for us to be mutually all leaning towards having them. And my only issue with the bathrooms would be the location. And like the other neighbors here, we feel that the weighted average of you.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing Mr.
I can't
Prohov.
hear him.
Yeah, same thing.
Mr. Prohov is cutting in and out. I believe this happened once before for him. And I think I've lost him completely off the screen at this point. I'm not low. Oh no, there he is. He's still here. You're muted now, Mr. Prohov. You can see him working on his screen. He's muted. Can you unmute yourself, Mr. Prohov? I think you're unfrozen. All right, he's saying move on, I believe, with that hand gesture. So next on the screen, I'm seeing Dave Teska.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for the time. I just voiced my opinion for only a permeable path. I don't think we need a concrete or asphalt path, but I would be supportive of a 5 to 6 foot, probably no more, walking, jogging path around the perimeter of the park. I would be supportive of low lights only down the center of the existing path. I think that makes sense. I'm not really supportive of, oh, by the way, I'm at 2616 Laurel. My house backs up to the park on the south side. I don't support the the need for bathrooms without seeing more statistics of why that makes sense to spend what I hear is a really expensive budget for that. And I would support porta potties, being sufficient. If it is approved to actually construct something, I would only like to see that over by the tennis courts or attached to Wilmette Junior High and not in the center of the park. And I'm supportive of the comments about having a plan to make sure that it's done right. And then I'll use a few seconds of my time to just make a comment on the diversity, which I think is a great statement in the right direction. But I think that we should think about how we can add the concept of being proactive, not just welcoming, but proactive to create more diversity in our park district programs. I grew up in Evanston, and I miss, quite frankly, the diversity that I grew up with in Evanston here in Wilmette. And I haven't, my kids have been active participants in the park district growing up, but they didn't had the same level of experience as I had. And I think that we need to think about being proactive to facilitate that for our children in this community. And perhaps just some ideas I'll leave you with, which I don't have the answers yet, but perhaps an easy way would be to have some sort of park district, cross tournament, play, or maybe some reciprocity for in-town rates between a couple communities here on the North Shore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teska. Next on the screen, I see Sophie.
Hi, just listening tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the screen, I see Whitney Schisler.
I'm just observing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe our last name on the screen is Sarah N.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Newscable. I'm also at 2530 Laurel Lane. I spoke in one of the last meetings. I just want to reiterate the support of others in the community surrounding the park in terms of having a permeable path, as well as I personally am opposed to the bathrooms. And I have to say, I know it's not what most of us are here speaking about, but I really strongly appreciated Dave's recommendation surrounding diversity and finding ways to incorporate other communities in our park district programming as well. So that's all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. I believe that covered everybody. If I missed someone, please unmute yourself and speak up now.
I could just finish, if you can hear me now.
We can hear you.
Thanks. I'll make it real quick. Before I forget, I want to shout out a thanks to Mr. Murdoch. He's really turned this process around quite a bit, and we appreciate that. What I was trying to finish up was about the lighting. I think I made the point about the bathroom on the other side. The lighting, I think, I've heard a lot of comments about along the central pathway, especially now that it's really dark. It's really obvious that that wouldn't be such a bad idea for the kids, as long as it was on a timer, so we wouldn't have to look at it all night long, and encourage people to walk after whenever the park closes. Same on the pathway. I don't really understand the need for the lights. A lot of people seem to want the pathway, and I think it's coming around to, if it has to be there, to have a permeable surface that's easier on people who want to jog there and run there. I think that covers it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prohoff. All right, President Anderson, I believe that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you very much to everybody, and thanks for hanging in there and listening to what everybody had to say. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the voucher list. I guess we'll get to the comments from the board on the community playfield items shortly here. So for those who are hanging on, hang on just a little bit longer. We've got the voucher list approval set up. Commissioner Goebel,
Yes.
Vice President Goebel, do you want to make the motion?
Yes, I move to approve the voucher list in the amount of $1,017,019.09, a copy of which is to be attached to and become a permanent part of the minutes of this meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, updates?
I have
Yes.
one question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Roddick.
Oh, thank you. I had one question. I saw on the voucher list, I believe we have a $5,000 payment to the Wilmette Baseball Association. As everyone is aware, we have a very productive partnership with the Wilmette Baseball Association, and they maintain the baseball fields in partnership. But I did have a question about that number. I'm curious if the amount was adjusted in any way this year, if any of the work was adjusted in any way this year. Just a quick question about the status of that and the cost associated with it.
Sure. That particular payment was for preseason work that they did at one of the fields before the pandemic. Once the pandemic began, they shut down their operations as far as at least paying their provider, which we split the invoices with up to a threshold dollar amount. The provider was still maintaining the fields because they simply were trying to keep their staff busy, but they weren't charging the Baseball Association, therefore not a cost that we're going to split with them. So I expect the number this year to be less in total as compared to a prior year.
Great, thank you.
Great, and I would have a question about the water sewer bills that, and we have a few that are on the first page of the voucher list and broken out by specific facilities. I'm noting that they're on a credit card, and I'm just curious if there's a reason that there's a credit card payment versus an invoice.
Yes, so the Village of Wilmette has an online portal for all of us to pay our water bills online. We have credit cards in our staff's hands, and we actually receive a nice rebate. The more we spend, the more we get back. And our rebate on an annual basis is usually in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. So we try and put as many things on the card as possible to.
Understood. Makes sense. And then just thank you for that. That makes sense. And then just a comment. I see that security cameras invoices are coming through, so I'm excited to see that and know that that's been an ongoing effort.
Yes,
so
yeah, they've been installed in a few locations and more to go.
Great, it's great.
I
Nothing else for me.
I see Commissioner Wolf's hand is up.
I just had a question on the first page of the voucher list, kind of where the bigger charges are listed out. It says other sundry services and products for $68,000. I'm assuming that's a compilation of other items in the voucher list, but does that have to do with the COVID supplies and things like that, I'm guessing?
No,
or?
that's in every month.
Okay.
It's really just to balance the number to the total dollar amount.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a question too. On page 5 of near the bottom page of the vouchers, you've got several entries for well actually 2 questions. One, you have an entry there for stock photography. Just curious what that's for or what that is.
In our marketing pieces, at times we purchase stock photography to use. You have to pay for the rights to use the photo.
Yeah, no, I realized. I just was surprised because usually I've seen, photos of residents in the.
Correct. Most of the time we are using our own photography, but at times we need a specific piece that we don't have.
Okay. And the second, slightly below that, we've got quite a few listings of travel match fees. What are those?
That is a good question. Sometimes the descriptions as typed in by staff are less than enlightening. My assumption of that is one of our programs that travels, they had to pay a fee to enter matches. So it might be tennis related, given the word match, but I don't know for sure.
There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, there are.
I'll have to get more information on the specifics there. But looking at the account number and looking at the wording there, I'm assuming that's travel matches. It's probably something we pay and then people pay back to us.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I think we're ready for a vote, President Anderson.
If nobody else has questions, I just wanted to mention one thing, Steve.
Sure.
One of the things we noticed was a lot of outstanding checks that were being reissued that people had lost.
Yes.
Steve, you frozen. I'm sorry. Was that me or you is frozen?
I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. You froze for a while there. Okay, yeah, you were freezing on me. One of the questions I had, I always have miscellaneous questions on the voucher list that I ask outside of the meeting, but one of the things that I asked about this time was seemed to have a lot of outstanding payroll checks that people were issued and then they never cashed. So we had to go and replace them, which is a huge annoyance for the accounting people at the park district, the payroll people. So, one of the questions I asked was, can we make a push to perhaps move away from the paper checks and move as many people as we can to some kind of card, debit card or whatever. So that's something that Commissioner Foy is going to work on next year, already on her list of things to do, I think. But it seemed we can't legally require everybody to go on that card, but we can, limit the number of people. Like at our company, we have like 4 people who are still getting paper checks in Illinois. So, and Steve, you've frozen again. I don't know if it's me or you. Can you hear me?
I'm feeling very unfrozen at the moment, but
can anybody else hear me?
Yeah, I think everyone's hearing you fine.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you fine.
So
Both good.
So yes, we'll work on that. We've been making a push.
Okay, you haven't moved in about 45 seconds.
The hard part is when people are with us for such short times and they get their last check when they're already off of college, they often don't cash it. So it's a somewhat of a nature of the business we're in as compared to more conventional businesses. But we will definitely look at it.
Yeah. There was one person with 6 checks thus. So.
That's what we get for hiring independently wealthy people.
Yep, I've dealt with that at other places. Yep. It was the piggy bank for somebody. That's what they, anytime they needed money, they just grabbed a check and cashed it. Okay, next item on the agenda is
I think we need to vote on the motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. We need to, sorry, that's right. Could we get a motion?
All right, Commissioner Abbott?
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch?
A second, please.
Commissioner Schisler?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Voucher list is approved.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, next item is Executive Director's Report.
Great. Much of my report was actually about the agenda items under new business, so this should be pretty brief. Just want to touch on COVID and the Park District in general. Over the last couple weeks, you've seen more and more of our notifications by way of email to inform the public of either a staff member or a participant who's notified us that they've tested positive for COVID. They seem to be happening more often. I think that's in line with what we're seeing in the area. We're getting 1 or 2 a week where we would go weeks in between seeing one. I want to just emphasize that we are doing contact tracing with every single one of these cases, and everything we are seeing is that none of the cases are linked to one another, and none of the cases are being transmitted within our facilities and programs. That is not to say that that doesn't change somewhere in the future, but at the moment, that's what we're seeing. To that end, when we send out the notices, we often get residents who ask us questions back. There's some information we can share, there's some information we can't share, but one thing we have gleaned from that information is that people are unable to connect the dots that these aren't hotspot within one program or something like that, because why would they, right? They're not doing our job. And so what we're looking at is adding some information to those notifications to better frame the information for people so they can digest it in an easier way and understand the information we're passing along a little better. So we're hoping to get that information reformatted and start using that here towards the end of this week or sometime next week. Any questions on COVID before I move on? All right.
Just to clarify, you are not, I mean, you are, okay, for example, you've been sending out a notice of a staff member at the Community Recreation Center, for example, who's tested positive, but you are not seeing, by the contact tracing, you are not seeing any additional cases showing from coming up from people who had visited the recreation center.
Correct. We have been very welcoming and open to our staff members to make sure they're making the right decisions and not feeling pressure to come to work if they are not feeling well or seeing a symptom or been exposed to someone who's been confirmed positive. So what we're seeing is our staff in general are really doing the right thing to make sure they're protecting their coworkers and the participants in our programs and the users of our facilities. Likewise, we're seeing the exact same thing from our users. People are making the right decisions, and we are very thankful that people are actually thinking to reach out to us and let us know as well, and not just their schools. And so I think because so many people are taking it seriously and trying to do the right thing, we've been able to make sure that we don't spread it within our programs and within our facilities.
Good, thank you. So it sounds like it's much more community transmission than, based in any one facility. And you've indicated you're making some plans to, adjust the communication. Are you considering at all a dashboard or something to show cases?
Yes.
I know that some bodies or government are doing different things. Sounds like that's something in the wheelhouse.
We're very much going to create a place within our website to kind of the information that would be included in the press releases would also have a place on our website, so anyone can go and look at it at any time.
That's great. I think one thing that's important that I'm engaged in a similar effort with District 39 is to have a numerator denominator, because I'm sure, seeing emails over the course of 10 days and you identify that it's 4 or 5 individuals, but that might be out of hundreds or more visits, or similar, granted a greater scale. So I would just know that there's a few examples in the community that might be useful references.
It's almost like you were in our staff meeting the last time we talked about this. So
you've got a great team. I'm sure you guys are all over this. Thank you.
So thank you. And then continuing on with the report, we've done much of our budget process already. Each individual committee has reviewed their portion of the budget. What remains now is the full board's part of that process, and that continues this Wednesday night with a committee of the whole meeting to review the capital projects plan, and then we approve, or then we move on to another full committee of the whole meeting in the start of December to review the entire budget, capital, operational, everything that had been reviewed through this upcoming Wednesday gets wrapped together, and we review it one last time at the start of December. And then looking at everything here, the only other thing is you have an item under the Finance Committee regarding the Truth in Taxation resolution. That is standard operating procedure with the tax laws. The Financial Planning and Policy Committee has reviewed that information. This is information to inform the public of what the board is contemplating issuing as a tax levy. It is not binding in any way. It is purely informational. So we'll discuss that further in the Financial Planning and Policy Committee meeting. And that concludes my report.
Steve, I know we had some conversations with regard to the tightening of the state's the COVID regulations and restrictions. It seems to me that, as you've said, and as I've read as well, the state is making specific recommendations with regard to things like fitness. Our operations are not changing based off of the state's. Again, the state is not leaving park districts up in the air on these, but they're actually letting us know what can and can't be done, and we're following all the state regs on these tightening of conditions. So just for the public, if anybody has any questions, we're following the state regs.
Great, thank you.
Okay, that concludes Executive Director's report. We're on to committee reports, and starting would be the Lakefront Committee. Commissioner Abbott.
Yeah, we've got some housekeeping to do here with Lakefront. We've had a number of meetings, and we've had a couple of committee of the whole meetings, which will come back. I'm going to discuss those. So first off, we had a committee of the whole meeting back in October with regard to shoreline protection. in this over the past, since the summer, I want to update a little bit because water levels do continue to drop, and that's been extremely helpful. Down at Gilson, it's been my estimate that we've been able to see an increase in the amount of sand shoreline down at Gilson of anywhere from 50 to 60 feet. That's not to say it's going to stay, but water levels of Lake Michigan and Huron have dropped the better part of a foot, certainly more than half a foot. I mean, there are daily fluctuations, and that has had a significant improvement in our beach. We're down to like 30 feet. Now we're like more like roughly 80 feet in those areas where the dune grass, 30 feet to the dune grass to the shore, now maybe more like 80. Langdon, though, really no improvement that I can discern. It's hard to get down there to see in terms of increase in shore, rebuilding of sand. It looks substantially the same. So October, we had a committee of the whole meeting. We do not vote in these committee of the whole meetings. We do kind of take the temperature of where the board was going, and I'm gonna basically pass on the temperature, and if anybody wishes to comment, they should do so. Now is the time in a actual board meeting. With regard to Gilson, the suggestions and the options that were proposed by the Smith Group were, this board basically deferred them and passed on them, but handing them off to the master planners if there were any ideas that the master planner wanted to bring back to us, but basically no action on the Gilson Park suggestions. With regard to Langdon, to my ears, there was a desire on the board's part to protect the bluff, to restore, perhaps enhance the boulders. There was concern about that cost. I believe we were in the $2 million range. I'm not interested personally in spending $2 million, but I am interested in what we can afford to do there in terms of bettering the situation. And so the board did not take up what they called offensive measures like offshore breakwaters, purely defensive measures of trying to beef up those boulders that have now been exposed by the erosion and are actually protecting our bluff. And so I believe that the action is for the Lakefront Committee to concentrate solely on Langdon and the enhancing and restoration of the bluff protection there and move forward with that. So I'm going to stop and see if there's any discussion on this issue. Did we get it right? Are there any concerns about the Lakefront Committee moving forward on this initiative? Anyone? Then I'm going to take that as an affirmative. We will continue to move on just that issue in Langdon, and otherwise basically closing out the shoreline erosion issue with the exception of Langdon. We had a meeting we had a walk around meeting in October, and a lot of positive comments. We had a number of people from the public attend that as well, but this was primarily for the commissioners to have access to the designers. And we walked the entire park and ideas were thrown out. All commissioners as well as the public. We had a meeting in November last week wherein the master plan consultants gave us a draft version of what they heard, those comments in that walk around. That will be issued to the board and to the public for discussion in December or January when the consultants will come in and talk to the board. Did they get it right? And I'm going to come back to that issue. I want to wrap up the rest of my comments. We'll come back to that. We also talked about Mary Schmick, who's always been very generous in terms of her work on the Memorial Garden over there by the harbor. She gave a proposal with regard to perhaps some fencing. That was handed over to the master plan for them to consider her concerns. Also in that November meeting, I must say, we had a link that did not work, and so some members of the public were not able to attend. Therefore, again, we took no action with regard to the master planning, and the public should get their hands on this draft version of these programming notes, and because we will be talking about them in the month or 2 months to come. But I do apologize to those who were not able to get into that meeting. All is not lost. Nothing was passed. You see, before I come back, there was talk about the budget. Obviously, all committees are doing that. Winter, the staff will be going into winter mode, putting up fencing shortly this month down at Gilson. So back to the master plan. In order to keep our consultants from having to make double presentations, this board has shown an interest in being a part of these master plan discussions. And I'm going to put the question to the board here. Shall the master plan consultants address the board in these meetings or special meetings, or shall they bring comments to the Lakefront Committee to then revise or pass judgment on these comments and then bring to the board? We really don't want to have to make them do double presentations. So if the full board would like to hear these for themselves and like to comment on them, I have absolutely no problem. I'm looking for consensus on Gilson. I'm willing to talk to anybody and everybody in order to get there. So how would the board like to proceed with regard to the master plan consultant? Come to the board or come to the Lakefront Committee? Comments?
I would like to see the presentations at the board meetings.
Okay. Others?
I think I would agree with that.
Wouldn't it be though, like, sort of like as we see in the financial planning and policy meetings, like we can come in, I mean, any board member can sit in and listen. But it seems like since this is the lakefront, it should be mainly the purview of the Lakefront Committee. Any board member can listen to it, and then it can be brought to the full board for a decision.
Sure, but and
with
please,
our recommendation.
Commissioner Abbott, correct me if I'm wrong. The issue is not whether or not it could be brought before, but causing more work for the consultants. Is that correct?
Yes, if other board members who aren't on the Lakefront Committee would like to have access and engage in the give and take with the master planners in terms, this is a lot of blue sky thinking.
Because I'm sure that there's a lot of questions that people will have.
To influence it, then yes, I think the object would be to have them come talk to the full board. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'm interested in the discussion as well, and having it, appreciated the walk around Gilson and the discussion of all the possibilities. I frequently attend the Lakefront Committee as a silent member, but I think on this particular topic, it'd be nice to have the give and take and discussion of some of the features. So whether that's a special meeting or a board meeting, I think the full board has an ability to bring in input.
And I think I'm sorry to interrupt. I think there's ample precedent for that. If you consider the stormwater plan, effectively that impacted 3 parks. And we certainly could have handled that in the Parks and Rec Committee, but I don't think that would have been appropriate. And we handled those as a board. Major issues like this, I think, should be handled by the full board.
Anyone else?
I guess I would just I agree. I'd like to see it at the board level. Once it's at a point where a decision needs to be made, I would ask maybe that the Lakefront Committee is doing its due diligence and in prior iterations, and then getting it to a point where the engineers or whomever would come and give us a presentation where we're making a decision about critical issues.
Good point. The Lakefront Committee still has a job to do and a function to play here in these discussions, especially when it comes to details and the summation of this master plan.
Yep. Great. Thanks.
Sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Anybody else? All right, then I think that I'm gonna conclude that we're going to keep.
Normally, I'd like things done at committee level, but this is big.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and it's near and dear to everyone's heart. All right, so I think that we will ask the consultants to make a presentation on the findings of the walk around to the full board, where the full board can comment back and say, yes, I think you've got my comments correctly, or no, I'd like you to revise.
Commissioner Abbott, I
You just
believe
got
you
muted.
muted yourself.
You just muted.
There's something Freudian in that, I'm sure. Okay, I'm so unwilling to mute myself. All right, I don't know where I got muted, but we're going to ask the consultants to come to the full board with their programming notes from that packet. One last issue: there was a permit request with regard to Boy Scouts. It was Troop 5. I'm affiliated with Troop 5. I'm not throwing their request on the board. I'm not that dumb, and so. But it did raise up the issue of camping in Gilson Park. Certainly the Lakefront Committee did not bring a recommendation to allow the camping. I don't know if the board wishes to comment on it. We have not, because of past transgressions, allowed camping, except for our own camping. I don't know. This would be a precedent, perhaps a precedent setter. Does anybody wish to? We're not granting this camping request. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that? Well, I'd be fine with considering.
So I'm confused, and I'm just asking for clarification. I thought we did vote on it, and the 2-1 we said no. Are we taking it to the full board to vote? Is that what we're trying to do?
Well, I'm not asking.
Okay, no, I was just confused. I just want to make sure that
this would be a precedent setter. If there's any comments, if there's not, I can move on.
Yeah, I would actually like to weigh in. Thanks, Brian. And I did listen to the Lakefront meeting and heard the comments, and I understand it. And I know that it's been our policy for the last few years not to allow camping by groups other than associated with the park district. I guess I would just share a little bit of historical perspective that I was at a number of those campouts in the past with YMCA-based groups for both boys and girls, and that there was a long tradition of that. And for many years, they were wonderful events. And I think it's very unfortunate that toward the end, they became a little bit less wonderful, primarily because the leaders of those groups looked the other way when people were walking around with red cups. And having been on the lakefront on July 3rd, I understand that there are a lot of people who look the other way in certain circumstances. That being said, July 3rd is certainly very different from a campground, but I guess I would just say that those were wonderful events when they were properly led and properly monitored. I understand that we believe that we could no longer properly monitor those events with that particular group, and I think we made a wise decision to discontinue, even though, you know, my kids were impacted by that. That being said, I've also had some involvement with the Boy Scouts, and that particular issue has never been a problem at any Boy Scout event I've ever been at. And while my boys are no longer involved, I probably attended, you know, if not hundreds, certainly many tens of events and activities. And I know that wouldn't be an issue for Boy Scouts, and especially in COVID times, when it is more difficult for people to travel and do a lot of the activities. You know, camping is an important part of Boy Scouting, for example. I would really hope that we could find a way to accommodate those, you know, that specific group and other groups, and open up this really phenomenal resource we have to folks like that. So, Brian, I'm glad you brought it up. I understand that it was a committee decision. I understand we're not revisiting that decision today, but it's also my understanding that as a general rule, the staff doesn't even bring certain types of applications to the board. And if I had been sitting on the committee instead of one of the other commissioners, I think it would have come back with a positive recommendation. So I think it's important that people are aware of that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate your comments. And again, this is just soliciting. If anybody else would like to have anything to say, if not, I will wrap up my committee report.
Hey, Brian, it's Gordon. I just, you know, I completely agree with pretty much everything that's been said. The only thing I get concerned with, and this gets back into our inclusion statement, is that it's a slippery slope as to who you deem well-behaved enough to camp overnight in the park and who you don't. And, you know, I have a hard time saying no to one group and yes to another group for essentially the same purpose. So that's where I was coming. I'm not on the committee and I don't have a vote on that, but at the end of the day, I would have not been supportive of it. And you and I have had this conversation already, just
Sure.
because of where do you stop? You know, who doesn't get to camp overnight?
And the slippery slope argument is what ultimately led the, on a 2-to-1 vote, led the committee not to recommend the permit. So thank you. Then I am wrapping up. That is all I have for the Lakefront Committee report. Thank you all.
Okay, well, the next item is the Parks and Rec Committee, Commissioner Murdoch. And again, repeating what I said earlier, we're not here to pass anything, but we are here to have a discussion and sort of get the commissioners to kind of weigh in on what their thinking is and ask questions as needed on the two issues of the bathroom and the path on the circumference of the park. So take it away, Commissioner Murdoch.
Thank you, President Anderson, and again, thank you for that introduction. I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to allow all of the commissioners to weigh in, ask some questions, give some perspectives. If you recall, this time last year, the committee actually considered bathrooms at every single park in the district, and the committee made recommendations in favor of several parks. One was unanimous, the community play fields, and 2 others were by a 2-to-1 vote. We brought that to the full board. We had a discussion at the board level, but the board at that point didn't vote on those recommendations, and I think that was probably appropriate. That being said, though, because there seemed to be support for a facility at the community play fields, I think subsequent to that meeting, we did decide to include some funding for a bathroom at the community play fields in our capital budget. And so certainly, if any of these items that we were to consider might not be covered by the IGA, now is an appropriate time to talk about some of that, because we are going to have that capital meeting here just in a couple of days. So before I go to the community play fields, I want to just highlight that we did have a robust discussion about the budget. And I would like to commend staff that I think, especially in a year like this year, it's extremely difficult to put together a budget. I think especially with Parks and Rec, where so much of the budget deals with fee income, which deals with participation. And in many ways, we don't know what types of participation will be permitted, won't be permitted. And it may change over the course of the year. I was exceptionally impressed with the staff and the level of thought that went into their planning. In some cases, they expected, and they actually did a great job of explaining it to the committee as well, where in some cases in earlier parts of the year, they expected the situation to be more restrictive. There'll be less participation. Later in the year, less restrictive, more participation. But even within that, there were certain situations where they thought would be, more robust or less robust, and all that was reflected in their projections and in their budgeting and their fee income expectations. And so I just think this is a really tough year to do this, and I was impressed with all of the thought and the work that went into it. And I don't really intend to say anything else about the Parks and Rec budget at this time. Obviously, we're going to have more opportunities for the commissioners as a group to look at the consolidated budget. But I just thought that I should start with that. If there are any comments, I'll open it up and then I'll shift to the community play fields. Okay, great. Thank you. As you heard in the public comment section tonight, we do have a number of people who have some strong feelings about our plans for the community play fields. The committee has, just to review the process to date, we did send out 2 surveys to the community as a whole. We sent out a first survey, and then there were some concerns about some of the options and methodology. So we sent out a revised survey. We took that data, and then we had 2 meetings on site at the community play fields where we sought community input. And we've had conversations at at Parks and Rec committees, and we've had conversations here at the full board. And so, coming out of all of that, we had some formalized ideas shared a month ago, and then through our comment process, both at the committee level and at the board level, there were some revisions which the staff again shared with us this time around. Based on that, the committee felt we were prepared to recommend bathrooms at the community playfields, but not a specific location for the bathrooms, and a fitness path of some sort, and that fitness path should be of a permeable nature, not impervious. And but we didn't feel that we had a location identified, and so we would like to continue those discussions at the committee level, ask staff to continue to provide additional information. Jumping back to the bathrooms, and I apologize, I didn't mention it earlier. There is a question about whether or not the district will have access to two bathrooms that are inside the junior high. And it might require an intergovernmental agreement for us to have that access. And so it may take a little bit of time to kind of figure out. But certainly some of the committee members, myself included, felt that access to those bathrooms would impact what we thought would be appropriate in terms of bathrooms in the park. And so at this point, I really just want to open the conversation up to the other 4 commissioners who are not on the committee, give them an opportunity to comment on the proposals that are out there thus far, any recommendations that you think you might be able to support or not support, any additional questions you want to ask, and any additional work the staff should do to gather additional information so that we might be prepared at the next meeting to move forward on something. So with that, I'll open it up to the commissioners.
Great. Anybody want to jump in?
Sure. I want to first comment about the tenor of the comments from the community tonight, as well as the committee's work of engagement with the community. The tenor of the comments tonight were looking for compromises, looking to try to build win-win. I really want to commend the committee, Commissioners Wolf, Clark, and especially Murdoch, in terms of really engaging and trying to strongly engage the community in this discussion. And I think we're seeing signs of ways to build compromises that both help the community as well as address the neighbors' concerns. With regard to specific issues, bathrooms, I'd like to get more information on the junior high. And for me, speaking personally, just for me, in terms of my vote, location is the issue. In other words, how I might vote on this, I'll have almost everything to do with its location. So I'd like you to continue to work on that issue, and I appreciate you not necessarily pinching me by bringing me to a vote today without a location. That would be. I'm just glad I don't have to vote on that. The center path lights, I think there's been a growing consensus that it could be done in a way that both satisfies neighbors' concerns as well as the safety issues, as long as they're low, unobtrusive, think theater light kind of aisleway light. And with regard to the running lights, I mean the path, I would say that the only way I can get my head around it is to listen to what I'm hearing there tonight, which is impermeable, no lights. Certainly, I mean, I used to live in the city, but even when I moved to Wilmette, I continued to ride my bike down for work, like once a week. And I watched the evolution of the lakefront path through the city of Chicago over the last 35 years. And it has evolved, and it has evolved to meet a need. And I'm not sure that I'd want to jump out of the gate and build some path around community playfields for a need that I'm not quite certain about yet. But I could see my way to a cinder path, impermeable, no lights. Let's see how this works and see if it gets some support. And besides, that's kind of a low-cost solution. So those are my thoughts. I don't necessarily have questions, but I applaud your committee and you know, your efforts to move forward and engage the community. That's my.
If it's okay, I'll go next. When I bought my house, the previous owner was one that he was actually one of the people that curated the botanical gardens, and he was huge into gardening and the way things looked and this type of thing, and he bragged and bragged and bragged about these lights that went out on the outside and that he put in and pointed in the special way and blah blah blah. And quite honestly, I kind of dismissed him and yeah, whatever, okay, thanks. And quite honestly, that has become something that over time I've actually really appreciated, and appreciated the way they look. My neighbors frequently come up to me and go, "Oh my gosh, your yard looks amazing. I love the lights in it." It's not something where I have to put blackout shades or, you know, in fact, quite honestly, I don't even notice them from the inside whatsoever. But on the outside, it really looks good. So I say that because quite honestly, I would not have the skill or the knowledge or the ability to repeat that or some sort of accent wherever we might be installing them in the park. So whatever we do, I think we should hire a consultant that's an expert in this, because I don't want something I don't want a stadium. I don't want something that, geez, we wonder if there's a soccer game going on at 10 o'clock at night. I like Commissioner Abbott's analogy of something like in a movie theater. It's basically, how do we stay on the path? And especially with it being dark at 5 o'clock, and in non-COVID times, I could see kids walking on this path at 5 o'clock. That I think it is a safety issue, and but I don't want something I don't want a prison looking type of thing, or where lights are shining all over the place. I too like the path, but I think that the permeable surface is the only way to go. So that's kind of where I'm at. And also the bathroom, I think that I don't want to even make a comment on the location yet, because that is the most important thing, and that's something that we have to really look at. So those are kind of my thoughts on those items. So just weighing in.
Sure. I'd like to, add my comments, and I would say that as a whole, I've really appreciated the input from the community. I know that we as a board make informed decisions when we hear lots of opinions, and I certainly appreciate all the work that the neighbors have done to learn about the issues, to study the drawings, and to become acquainted with the process. I'm interested in that we have not seen any non-neighbor concerns about the amenities, and I'm drawing that conclusion based on participation in these meetings or any emails that we've received. And so, I would be interested to know where those sentiments lie, and if I believe we've captured some of those in the surveys that have been conducted. But in my experience as someone who lives near another neighborhood park, I know that there are many visitors around the community that come to the park for lots of reasons, whether there's soccer games, baseball, and so forth. And so I expect that kind of traffic. And my impression is that those visitors also expect some kind of amenity. So when I think about the hundreds of families that visit the parks for soccer games, baseball games on a given Saturday, I think it's reasonable to have some amenities present. And for that reason, I'm in favor of a restroom in the least, if I can say, least offensive place. I think it's appropriate to have some running water and some washrooms. But I would want to do that in a place that is going to still preserve the beauty of the park as a whole, and to create that same feeling of open spaces. So it's premature to pin a location down in my mind, but I know we've discussed two that are toward the perimeter of the park versus in the center. And I think the perimeter seems like a more appropriate spot, especially close to the tennis courts or to the schools. to the junior high rather. With respect to lighting, I believe we all agree that low lighting is the way, and the specific mode is something that we're looking to understand further. But certainly nothing that would illuminate the park as a whole, like a stadium, which has been mentioned briefly here. I think we all want very low level lighting. That is maybe a 3 to 4 foot bollard at most, and is something that is as Todd described, seen in the future as an attractive feature. So along the center of the path that exists. As far as the path on the perimeter of the park, I am a runner also, and I appreciate having places to run. It does seem that a permeable surface is the most appropriate solution. It's also one that has gathered a lot of community support if there is to be a path. So I'm supportive of that. I'm not certain that lights need to be on that particular path because that's, to me, not a life safety issue as much as a convenience factor. I do see the park path in the middle between the two schools as a bit of a safety issue. And for that reason, I think lighting is appropriate there. Once again, I just want to comment about how much I appreciate the community input. I think that I've seen perhaps a shift in terms of the tone of the comments, and as they've gotten to know us, I think the community is starting to see that we too feel very serious about being stewards of the park and doing the right thing. So I appreciate both the ongoing participation and also a movement toward a sense of compromise for all involved. So thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm the last one. I would agree with pretty much everything Commissioner Goebel said. I would go a little step further, though, on the perimeter path. When I think about how many months a year we're in the dark at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, maybe even up to 8 o'clock at night, and having the ability to, run or walk or whatever on a path in the park. It's a beautiful park, up to, as I said, 7 or 8 o'clock at night, nothing later than that, to give people who are coming home from school or coming home from work or whatever a chance to get out and use it, to me is really important. And I think we can get lighting that is so low and in terms of the height, and then also low in terms of the wattage and the amount of light that's coming out of them, just enough to cover the path and make sure people can sort of see that there's nothing on it, so that people can use it when it's dark outside. And then obviously the center path, that is a safety issue. And the one thing we haven't talked about when it comes to the landscaping is I think we have to be a little careful about how we landscape close to either of the paths, just to make sure that there's no places for, miscreants to hide that would impact somebody walking on the path or running on a path. So I'm sure they would think about that at the time. But it's just something we haven't really talked about yet. And the bathrooms, I think we have to get an answer on Wilmette Junior High and what the availability is there. I just logically can't see why that wouldn't be available to us. And then the question is, if we have that availability, how does that impact where the bathroom should be in the park? And I'm like everybody else, wants to minimize the impact on the people who are there, keep the sight lines as best as they can be for everybody. And this would not be something that would be anywhere more intrusive than it had to be. And I'm sure there's lots of things we can do design-wise and landscaping-wise to kind of cover it or hide it or see through it or whatever it is that we're going to do.
I actually, in terms of location for the bathroom, I have one other question, actually another question for the staff. All the drawings, all that so far that we've seen shows the bathrooms to the north of that center pathway. And my question is, have you ever considered, or there was another possibility of putting a bathroom to the south of that path, and where such where that might be located and the pricing of that. So that's that. I do have a question, in terms of deciding this. My own feeling, to some extent, is, again, having with kids, having had to trudge so far to a porta potty at either end by the playground, by the junior high, which is even further than the junior high, or to Highcrest. Those locations really are not very convenient. It's really not. I mean, but yeah, I can understand it, and I did walk through the park earlier today that, you don't really want to, you kind of want to see perhaps the bathrooms like a little bit further away from the homes. Well, some part of me thought, well, what about to the south side of the walkway? Most of the locations that we've seen so far has been to the north. What about to the south? And is there a more economically feasible location there that we again have the access to the water and to the pipes that are being put in? So that is my question to the staff: is is the south side a possibility?
Thanks, Cecilia. Before the next committee meeting, I'll ask the staff to look at additional locations. I know they're looking at different configurations for the path as well. So again, and obviously we'll try to get more direction with respect to the junior high bathrooms. So that's sort of what we're trying to do in advance of the next committee meeting. We'll continue to have these discussions, and then, perhaps next meeting, perhaps in a subsequent meeting, the committee will be able to make a specific recommendation on each of these issues. So I'd like to thank everybody for sharing their thoughts and comments and questions, and we'll continue to work to get to a more specific recommendation for the full board. Thank you. And that concludes my committee report.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Murdoch. Next item on the agenda is the Golf Operations Committee. Commissioner Wolf.
Yes, the Golf Operations Committee met on October 26th. At that time, things were still moving along swimmingly over there at the golf course. We've had a lot of action. The course is looking great. One of the things that was noted was that our greens aerification was not completed this fall. The staff decided that because the weather was still so good that they would not aerate the course to allow for additional play, and the plan is to aerate it in the spring instead. So it hopefully won't impact anything in the spring, but we have a longer season now, so that was good. We also learned that we are 59% over rounds from September last year than this September, so things have really picked up and are doing well. We've already doubled rounds in October from last year, and the financials are very strong at the golf course currently. The driving range has been very busy we're up 42% from last year, and we are up total rounds 32% from last year. So things have been exceptionally well over there. Our last item that we discussed was the budget. Membership pricing is going up 3%, and the staff will continue to look at dynamic pricing. That was something they did this year that was very successful. Different days, different times, if it was raining and there couldn't be carts used and things like that. So that was something that they will continue to utilize next year in our pricing. We're projecting about a $350,000 surplus this year at golf, which is really good. So kudos to the staff for managing all the crazy COVIDness and the ability not to play and then have all kinds of crazy rules in place. So they've been doing a great job over there. So that was pretty much our meeting for the golf, a regular meeting, but then we also did have a committee of the whole meeting discussing the cart path and the financing of that. I don't know, Gordon, if you want me to talk about that now as well.
Yes, why don't you?
So it had been approved to proceed with the golf cart continuous path that's being put in at the golf course. There's currently I believe it's a crushed granite path that is only partially around the course, and it prevents the course from being used on days when there's rain because carts, you can't drive on it, and so carts can't go around, and so it limits our number of rounds and our cart rental usage. So the committee and the board decided to move forward with a continuous path, and we were looking at ways to finance it. After a robust discussion, it was decided to go with a 12-year debt option where the first 2 years are a lower payment amount, and then it returns to a consistent amount over the last 10 years of the debt offering. And then, so we were supposed to have, I think, a full, more robust discussion on that this evening, but it sounds like, and vote on it, but that we're holding off on that at this point. And that's pretty much it for the golf committee. Any questions?
So I assume November is doing real well too.
Given the weather, we haven't had our meeting yet this month, but I'm assuming it is as well. I mean, it's just obviously been gorgeous. So glad we're getting lots of extra rounds in.
Yep. Sounds great.
Congratulations to the staff and to the committee, to the community for coming out and enjoying golf this year. That's great news.
We're excited too that if the weather is cold and snowy, that there'll be lots of cross-country skiing available for the residents as well. During the winter, we'll have the trails groomed once we get over, I think, 6 inches. So that's exciting that hopefully we'll be able to continue to have a lot of usage over the winter there as well.
We haven't had much usage on the cross country for the skiing for the last couple of years. It would be nice to, yes, that would be great. We'll see what Mother Nature gives us.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is the Financial Planning and Policy Committee, Commissioner Goebel.
Yes, Financial Planning and Policy Committee met on October 19th, and we covered quite a lot of ground, some of which has already been touched on in this meeting. But as noted, we discussed the diversity and inclusion initiatives and how we plan to approach those in subsequent committees over the next several months. And we also discussed the debt servicing option, which has been covered here already. Very pleased that this alternative financing has been discovered so that we can invest in this particular facility and do so with no additional cost to taxpayers. I think that's very important, especially in a year like this, where we're making conservative fiscal decisions. We also discussed the remainder of 2020 and financial projections. It has been, as everyone has noted, an unprecedented year, probably the most use that word has ever had in a long time, but it's been unprecedented. And what has been really notable is that some tough decisions were made along the way so that we could maintain a sound financial position throughout COVID, since March. And so as a result, we're going to finish the year nearly at budget based on the revised actions that were taken. And that includes a reduction in capital spend for 2020. And so critical projects proceeded, but those that could be deferred have been deferred and will be looked at again in the future. That led us to the 2020 tax levy. So we vote in 2020 for the tax levy that comes into effect in 2021. And in fact, there will be almost a 2% decrease in taxes, which represents almost a 9% decrease in the versus the 2019 levy. And so I think that just reflects continued fiscal conservatism, and I appreciate that the staff brought us a sound recommendation, and we as a committee were happy to approve that, which we'll be voting on in just a few minutes. And then lastly, we looked over administration and parks budgeting. So certainly each committee looks at its own elements of the budget, and so did we. And some good and thoughtful decisions have been made. There's really been a lot of rigor in the process, recognizing that there are some unknowns as we go into the next 12 months. I think that the recommendations that have been made have been very well-founded, and were we to go to a phase 3 or even a phase 2, I think we are in appropriate planning shape for addressing those changes. And that wraps up my report on the last committee meeting.
Well, thank you. Just one clarification. When you said we're getting back to budget, we're clawing back to break even, but our budget was a profit of $1 million. So we're obviously not going to reach that. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. I mean, we are clawing back to break even, which is, still, notable.
A major accomplishment this year. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And just I had put out the request to Commissioner Goebel and the committee and to Steve to perhaps consider reducing or proposed levy by about $20,000. And the only reason for that is it's optics, but it's a statement as well. With the levy as proposed, when they add the 2% for the stuff that won't get collected over time, it then takes our levy up over what our actual levy was for this year. And so if we just dropped it by $20,000, then we would be below last year's levy. And again, it's optics, it's not much money, but it is a statement. And we're going to make a statement, I think, with our 2020 projections that we're back to break even in COVID year. And I think we're going to make another statement to the debt markets when we have a 2021 budget that will be, not in a loss position. And so I look at the tax levy as just another statement to the public of our sort of fiscal responsibility by having a decrease rather than a teeny tiny increase.
I'm comfortable with that adjustment. I think understanding that it isn't going to make a material change in the financial plans, but it does show good faith, I think is a good initiative.
And I think I would also support that. I know we had some similar conversations last year, but I do want to clarify, assuming that in future years we are choosing to adjust according to the limitations imposed by the state, this is something that does build on itself. Now, $20,000 is not.
I'm sorry, that would be in the special rec fund. It wouldn't be in the general fund.
What's that?
It'd be in the special rec fund. I forgot to say that.
Oh, that's great. Then I would strongly support it. I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I should have mentioned that.
So it will not impact us. That making that reduction now will not impact on the tax levy in future years. Is that what you?
That's
okay. Yeah.
Correct. Because it would be in the special rec. Does that? I'm gonna ask staff. Cutting the special rec fund by $20,000 this year. I'm assuming that raises no concerns on your part.
No, we think we can do that. It's an amount that was included for a reason as far as our reconciliation to a target fund balance, but $20,000 in the special rec fund, as noted by some of the commissioners in the discussion, doesn't get built upon year over year because it isn't subject to the same year over year limitations as some of the other funds are. So it's not like it's lost in perpetuity every year into the future, as we have more flexibility there.
Yeah. Okay. And the targeted fund balance in the reconciliation for the end of 2021 is higher than normal, which is driving some of the levy. So, it's probably higher than it would need to be, only because we're talking about spending a bunch of money on projects that we'll be able to transfer some of the funds from the levy to help finance. May not be clear to everybody, but
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
It's an appropriate use of the special rec fund for
yes.
ADA requirements for projects that are being anticipated. Sure.
Okay. All right. Do you want to, at this point, make the motion for the resolution?
I am happy to move to move. I just want to ask Director
Sure.
Wilson if I need to adjust it.
Let me say it for you, and then you
Thank
can
you.
motion.
Since we're changing it.
Motion to approve resolution 2020-R-2, Truth in Taxation, as recommended by the Financial Planning and Policy Committee.
With the reduction of.
Do we have to modify the truth and taxation statement?
We do not. Like I said, it's not a binding document in any way. We've, for the last 2 years, have made modifications after the resolution. The final tax levy gets approved at the December board meeting. I think it's appropriate for the Financial Planning and Policy Committee to take this request, analyze it, make sure it's the right thing, and then make a final recommendation on the final levy for the December board meeting.
Fair enough.
Great. So, Commissioner Abbott.
I'm seconding your motion for the truth and taxation ordinance.
Thank you.
And I have one question before we vote. It's, I believe we are required to have a hearing if the levy is of a certain amount. We've generally kept it below that amount, so we're not required to have a hearing is my understanding. But I believe by tradition, we've always done that to give the public the opportunity to come in and make a comment or ask questions. I would certainly hope we will continue to do that this year.
That is our intent, yes. And if your tax cap funds plus your special rec fund exceeds 5%, you're mandated to have a hearing. We have always had a hearing every year at the December board meeting before we start the regular board meeting, in which we approve the tax levy, and we will be doing that again this year.
Thank you.
Great. Could we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Okay. I think the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Anybody?
I
going
move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. Need to have a vote, Steve?
We have to do roll calls on everything in the virtual world. So Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Schisler?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes, and it's 9:45, whoever is going to take the minutes. So,
all right.
You made the under 2. Congratulations.
no, 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's pretty good. Given all the stuff we had to talk about, that's good.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.